The conference room felt like a cage. Richard Voss stood at the head of the mahogany table, his expensive suit pressed perfectly. Behind him, the company logo glowed on the screen. Board members sat in leather chairs, faces blank. I didn't know why I'd been summoned until Richard slammed the folder onto the table. The Newton Tech deal collapsed because of Lena Moore's negligence. His voice boomed through the room. Every head turned toward me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I opened my mouth, but words died in my throat. Heat flooded my cheeks as 30 pairs of eyes burned into me. I'd worked on that deal for 6 months, nights, weekends, holidays. I knew every detail by heart. But Richard was painting me as incompetent, and nobody questioned him. His eyes met mine for a split second, and I saw something cold there. Something calculated. He wasn't angry. He was performing. The humiliation wrapped around me like chains. When applause broke out for Richard's transparency, I forced my face into a frozen smile. My hands trembled beneath the table. That's when I knew this wasn't about the deal. This was a setup. Security met me at my desk 30 minutes later. They watched as I packed my belongings into a cardboard box. Framed photos of my niece, a coffee mug from last year's retreat, the plant I'd kept alive for 3 years. My badge beeped red when I tried to scan out. Deactivated already. HR handed me termination papers at the exit. Effective immediately, the woman said without meeting my eyes. Outside, March wind bit through my jacket. I could see faces pressed against the glass doors behind me, watching, whispering. My car sat alone in the parking lot, frost covering the windshield. I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, replaying Richard's words, the way he twisted every fact. I'd sent him proof 2 weeks ago, screenshots showing Newton Tech's legal team had pulled out, not us. He'd read those emails. He'd replied with, "Good work." Now he pretended they never existed. My breath fogged the windows. I whispered to the empty car, "You planned this." The realization settled like ice in my stomach. This wasn't spontaneous. Richard had orchestrated my destruction carefully. At home, I couldn't sleep. My apartment felt too quiet, too small. I opened my laptop at 2 a.m., staring at the login screen for my personal cloud backup. I'd always been careful, backing up important emails to my private account every Friday, just in case. My fingers moved automatically, typing in the password. The folders loaded slowly. There, buried in March's archive, I found a thread I'd almost forgotten. Richard had forwarded confidential notes to someone at Newton Tech. Half the messages were missing now, deleted from the company's server, but the subject lines remained. Final adjustments, revised terms, final transfer. I clicked through, hands shaking. One email made my blood run cold. Richard had sent Newton Tech's legal team a modified contract, terms we'd never agreed on internally, terms designed to make them walk away. I exhaled sharply, the sound loud in my silent apartment. He sabotaged the deal, deliberately, and then he blamed me for its collapse. My mind raced through possibilities, explanations, reasons. Nothing made sense except one terrible truth. Richard needed a scapegoat. My phone buzzed at dawn. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Lena?" The voice was young, nervous. I recognized it immediately. Eli Carter, the youngest analyst on our team. "They're erasing everything," he whispered. "Richard ordered IT to purge your sent mail from the server. All of it." My stomach dropped. "When?" "Last night, but I made copies first." Hope flickered in my chest. "Eli, if Richard finds out..." "I know, but what he did isn't right." His voice cracked slightly. "Can we meet?" We agreed on the underground parking garage, level 3, after everyone left for the day. The call ended. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone. Eli was 23, fresh out of college, terrified of authority. For him to risk this meant he'd seen something that shook him badly. I spent the day pacing my apartment, rehearsing scenarios. What if it was a trap? What if Richard sent Eli to test my next move? But the fear in Eli's voice had sounded genuine. At 8 p.m., I grabbed my jacket and drove toward the office I'd been banned from. The parking garage smelled like oil and concrete. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting yellow shadows. I parked in the darkest corner of level 3 and waited. My hands gripped the steering wheel. Every sound made me jump. A car door slamming, footsteps echoing, the elevator dinging. At 8:47 p.m., Eli's small sedan pulled in 2 spaces away. He looked around nervously before approaching my car. I unlocked the passenger door. He slid in, clutching a backpack. "I shouldn't be here," he muttered, unzipping the bag. His hands trembled as he pulled out a flash drive. System logs, timestamps, everything IT tried to delete. There's a message Richard sent at 2:04 a.m. the night before the deal fell through. I took the drive carefully, as if it might shatter. What does it say? He rerouted the deal terms himself, changed the contract clauses without board approval. Newton Tech's lawyers caught it and pulled out. Eli's voice dropped to a whisper. "Lena, he knows someone's digging. He asked IT who accessed the archives last week." Fear crossed his face. "Be careful." He left quickly, disappearing into the shadows. I sat alone, the flash drive burning in my palm like evidence of a crime. The next morning, I tried paying rent online. Transaction declined. I checked my balance. 0. Frozen account. My hands shook when I called the bank. "There's a legal hold on your account, ma'am. We received documentation of suspected fraud." "Fraud? I haven't..." "You'll need to contact the reporting party, Evermont Industries." Richard. My phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the kitchen counter. He wasn't just silencing me. He was erasing my existence. No job, no money, no credibility. I thought about the emails on the flash drive, the proof I'd hidden in my drawer. But proof meant nothing if I couldn't afford a lawyer, couldn't pay rent, couldn't survive long enough to fight back. Richard's influence ran deeper than I'd imagined. He had connections everywhere. Banks, media, legal firms. I was fighting a war with no resources, no allies, no platform. The apartment suddenly felt suffocating. I grabbed my jacket and walked outside just to breathe. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He did the same to me. "We should talk. CT." I stared at the name, memory clicking into place. Clara Trent, former executive, fired 2 years ago under suspicious circumstances. Nobody talked about what happened. We met at a cafe on the edge of town, the kind with mismatched chairs and chipped mugs. Clara sat in the back corner, a folder in front of her. She looked older than her years, exhaustion carved into her face. "You're probably wondering why I reached out," she said as I sat down. I nodded. She slid the folder across the table. Inside were newspaper clippings, termination letters, legal documents, all featuring different names, different faces, but the same pattern. "Richard ruins people," Clara said quietly. "Methodically. He did it to me when I questioned his offshore accounts. He did it to Marcus when he reported safety violations. He did it to Naomi when she refused to falsify audit reports." I flipped through page after page. 8 employees over 5 years, all destroyed professionally. Some lost their homes. One lost custody of their kids. "Why?" I whispered. Clara's eyes hardened. "Because he can. Because it keeps everyone else in line. You question Richard Voss, you disappear." She leaned forward. "But you have something the rest of us didn't. Proof. That flash drive Eli gave you, it's the key." My head snapped up. How do you? I still have friends inside, people who've watched Richard operate for years. Clara's voice dropped. The board meets in 7 days to finalize your termination. Be there. 7 days. I had 1 week to build a case that could topple a CEO. It felt impossible. I spread everything across my apartment floor. Printouts from the flash drive, Clara's folder, and my own backed up emails. Timeline after timeline, connection after connection. But there were gaps, missing pieces. I needed access to the company's internal archives, the ones only senior staff could reach. Clara suggested we target Diana Park, Richard's executive assistant. She'd worked for him for 6 years, handling everything from scheduling to confidential correspondence. Diana knows where everybody is buried, Clara said during our second meeting, but she's